This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. Information at vachamber.com. Virginia hospitals and health systems provide jobs. They support our economy and promote public health. Local hospitals are always open to help people with unexpected health needs. Having a stable healthcare network is vital. Virginia hospitals are our lifeline.
It's amazing what my students with special needs can accomplish. Their pride is priceless. That's why I teach.
Brought to you by the Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond, and a very special welcome to two guests who've been on before, but it's been some time. Delegate Nick Rush, Delegate Joseph Yost, both from the western part of the Commonwealth of Virginia. We're having the conversation in the last couple of days of the session, but it's being aired afterwards, so appreciate your reflecting on the session, the highs, if there are any lows, how you see things as they relate to your part of the Commonwealth and to the entire Commonwealth. Both of you are the class of 2012, so there's no real significant seniority, so one of you start and the other one join in.
Well, I mean, I think it was a short session. This is our 46-day session, but it doesn't matter whether it's a short session or a long session. We still do about the same amount of work either year. And this session, this is my, I guess, both Nick and I's third short session. This one seemed to be much more busy and just chaotic and hectic. I don't know if it's because it's our last session in the General Assembly building before we moved down the hill or what, but we finally, I think just in the last week, have had a chance to come up for air and breathe a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been an intense session. I think Joseph hit it right on the head. You've got 46 days to do the amount of work you normally do in 60. But actually, it seems like everyone pulled together, and we've been going at a really, really good pace, an efficient pace to make sure the work gets done. Last couple of days will always be hectic, but we're looking forward to it. I guess the high and the low was the Speaker of the House, Bill Howe from Stafford, announcing his retirement. He's been good to myself at Southwest Virginia, and I know Joseph has. Joseph gave a floor speech about his retirement and how much the Speaker had meant to him, and that is also, I mean, it was a very high point where to see the Speaker up there and emotional, but it's also a low knowing that he's not going to be here next year.
Well, I'll tell you, the number of floor speeches and the content of those floor speeches really were a great tribute to him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, just a wonderful leader. He's led by example, always putting the state, the Commonwealth, and the House of Delegates' integrity first above politics, and he will be greatly missed.
So what about some issues of the session?
Well, I mean, for me, I still concentrate on what I've concentrated on the last 6 years, which is mental health issues. We had a number of bills relating to some of the J. Michael Mitchell issues with inmates who are mentally ill and in our jails, and trying to continue to work on some of those issues. One of the bills that I had that was probably the happiest with was requiring that all residential advisors, before they begin their duties at our public institutions of higher learning, have to go through some type of mental health training, which I think is definitely something that's sorely needed. 75% of individuals who are going to have a mental health problem, it's going to appear by the time they're age of 23. And so these individuals are going to be working with those folks right at that point in time. And so this gives them the ability to at least recognize when there might be a problem or somebody might be having an issue and how to work with that person and where to refer them to services.
Well, I'll tell you, Joseph has been a leader on mental health since we've been down here. He's the go-to guy in the House of Delegates, and I believe throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. He's done just a wonderful job of modernizing our mental health apparatus in the state, and he's just done a wonderful job, and I can't heap enough praise on him. You know, for myself, you know, I was involved. I'm on appropriations now. This is my first term where I'm on appropriations. I'm real proud of my work on the 10-10-10 proposal for public school systems, and what that was a 10%. If you had a 10% decline in enrollment over the last 10 years, and you had less than 10,000 students, where the state was going to come in and provide a little extra funding, and we've seen that in Southwest Virginia, South Side, and in the Northern Neck. A lot of these communities have had a lot of dramatic enrollment loss, and they're so small that the economies of scale just doesn't work for them. So whether you have 19 kids in a classroom or 21 kids in a classroom, you still have to have the teacher. Whether you have 30 kids on the bus or 27 kids on the bus, you still have to have the bus driver and the bus, and the state formula is based on enrollment. For the most part, that's fair, but what we wanted to do is try to get these folks back in a posture where they can continue to provide a world-class education that we expect in Virginia. And I'm pretty proud of being able to work with Chairman Jones and all the other members of appropriations and allow me to take the lead on that and come up with a plan.
And to my knowledge, that's the first time for a plan such as this. It's not like picking up a plan from 20 years ago or 30, 40 years ago. So it was a creative solution to try to help these districts.
Yeah, well, they asked me what I thought, and whenever you ask Nick Rush an opinion, he gives it to you. Joseph knows, and so once you know they asked for my input, I went to work on it and tried to figure something out that would be, and I wanted to apply for the whole state, not just Southwest Virginia. We didn't want to do this by region or anything because that's divisive. We knew that there were localities that had these problems all over the state, and whether it be due to loss of coal mining jobs or NAFTA or changes in the economy on the Northern Neck, you know, we knew that there was a problem. So that's why, you know, Chairman Jones and the other staff and other members of the committee wanted me to work on this, and really appreciated the opportunity.
Yes. Joseph, what other issues would you want to bring up?
Well, I think it's incredibly important that we have Nick on appropriations. You know, he was the first member from Southwest Virginia to be on appropriations, I guess, really since Onsley was on appropriations from Roanoke City. And Roanoke City's not necessarily part of Southwest Virginia.
It's not far
Southwest Virginia.
It's not, no.
And so I think, you know, it's really important to have somebody from, you know, a rural area, especially Southwest or even another part of the state, if somebody was on it, because I don't think on appropriations there's really anybody else from rural areas on it. Most of it's Northern Virginia, Richmond area, or Hampton Roads, and so that was a voice that was, you know, sorely lacking because we have issues that are vastly different than what goes on in Fairfax County or Loudoun County or Newport News.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Joseph and I worked very hard on the Vietnam Memorial Bridge. Mm-hmm. Back in the summer, the local chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution set meetings up with Joseph and I and Delegate Habib, and so the three of us worked on trying to find an appropriate place to name in the honor of of our Vietnam veterans, and we come up with the bridge over by the Rafford Arsenal. Rafford Arsenal is an Army ammunition plant.
Right.
Has been an important part of the American military infrastructure, providing propellant for wars since World War II all the way to the current day. As a veteran myself, and you know, two of my sons or my two sons are in the Middle East now on deployment, and you know, veterans issues are very important to me and Joseph and Delegate Habib, and so we think it's a fitting tribute, and we'll be doing that probably in June or July.
Hopefully in the summer sometime, doing the official dedication.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that'll be most fitting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Most fitting. Other education issues, or higher ed, or public safety, or ones that?
Well, I mean, you know, for me and well for Nick too. You know, we've got two major institutions of higher education with Radford University and Virginia Tech, our four-year colleges, and we have New River Community College in the New River Valley. So we're sort of a hub in Southwest Virginia for higher education, and so that's been an issue that's sort of near and dear to our hearts, and trying to support them. Unfortunately, with the budget the way it was this past session, there wasn't a whole lot of extra money floating around to push some of the initiatives that we've supported over the years, like Virginia Tech Curling Research Institute and the Transportation Institute. But we did include in the budget raises for our faculty and staff at the institutions, and you can't, for us, discount the economic impact that those institutions have on our area. I think that's one of the reasons why we've been able to sort of, I guess, quote unquote, weather the recession better than some of the other localities in the state and across the country.
Well, and part of that was we changed the way we administered the budget cuts. We had we had a $1.5 billion shortfall in revenue, but so instead of doing a 5% across the board budget cut, we looked at the institution's ability to generate revenue on their own, and a lot of that's done through out-of-state students. So Radford is around 95-97% in-state students, so their ability to generate outside income is much more difficult than, say, UVA's. So we applied a formula that Radford University and Virginia Tech was about held harmless, and Radford University took a much lower reduction in their anticipated state aid than they would have under the governor's proposal.
Radford's been in the news very recently too about the tremendous number of applicants for the next school year, and
well, I think the future's bright. Dr. Hemphill is doing a wonderful job. He's really raising the profile. He's been down to Richmond several times, met with us, other members of the caucus, and he's just doing a wonderful job, along with Dr. Sands. Dr. Sands he's doing a great job. He's in constant contact with us, letting Joseph and myself and Delegate B know what their priorities are, and we try to listen to them, and then we put them in the context of what our other constituents want, and then how that fits in with the whole state.
Well, in our closing minute, anything that you see on the horizon that may be back before you when you're back in April for the reconvene day, because that will be the final.
It's interesting. I mean, there wasn't, this session, it was so fast and so chaotic, for lack of a better word. There wasn't like one issue that really sort of took over like in previous years. In 2013 we had transportation. Last year we had COPN. We had COPN a little bit this year, but nothing, like in previous years. The governor's already started to veto a couple bills. I think he vetoed 3 yesterday, so I think we'll definitely have some things to deal with when we get back, and of course revisions to the budget, whatever he goes through and changes up. But I think it'll be, hopefully, knock on wood, a pretty quiet reconvene session come April 5th.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we'll probably, the hardest thing we'll look at is going to be the budget items and how they affect the New River Valley and Southwest Virginia. So we'll make sure we keep an eye on that and make sure that we have a seat at the table.
Yeah. Delegate Yost, Delegate Rush, thank you very much for being on This Week in Richmond, and our next segment will feature others from Southwest Virginia.
Well,
thank you
look forward
very
to watching the show.
Thank you.
As we continue our Southwest Virginia show, we're delighted to welcome back to the set Delegate Israel O'Quinn and Delegate Jeff Campbell. Appreciate the two of you all being on the show. And as our viewers are reflecting on the session that's ended, and during this time now they're seeing it, and you're back home to come back in April, please tell them about the issues that you want to inform them on, the ones that you're delighted that got enacted, some others perhaps that you worked on that didn't quite end the way you wanted. Israel, you have a little bit more seniority coming in a session before, so we'll start with you and then go to Jeff.
I think we've made a lot of progress this year. We came in with nearly $1.5 billion budget shortfall, and we managed to be able to close that in a fairly non-painful way, and so glad about that. I think we also have a lot of good things going at least for Southwest Virginia, as far as economic development goes. I think the new restructuring of the Virginia Economic Development Partnership is ultimately going to be a good thing. I think the money that we have in the budget to assist Southwest Virginia with marketing our region is going to be a good thing. I think we've learned the hard way, unfortunately, that if you just kind of sit back and hope that a state agency in Richmond is going to do your work for you, you're going to be disappointed in the long run. And so we're trying to be aggressive in marketing Southwest Virginia, and I feel good about all the things that we've been able to do related to that. Everyone in our delegation carried some sort of economic development bill this time around, and so we're trying to get things headed in the right direction. There's finally some enthusiasm and people starting to feel good about maybe we're getting ready to turn the corner. So excited about what we've been able to do this session.
Yeah, David, I was really pleased that we were able, despite the tight budget crunch, to be able to continue the raises for the state troopers and the sheriff's deputies and other state employees. It's been a long time coming. Those people are very hardworking. They serve us very well, and unfortunately, they get the short end of the stick a lot of times when budget crunch happens. Fortunately, we were able to find ways to meet those obligations, and I'm happy for that. Also happy, obviously, that we have a big issue out in my district with the closing or the anticipated closing of the training center, and we were able to get a budget amendment placed in the budget that would provide for an ability to be able for those residents to stay in that center if, in fact, they choose to remain there. That should at least slow down the anticipated closure of it, so we can take a better look at it. I think the plan is ill-fated. I think it's calculated to lead to abuse and exploitation of some of the most vulnerable people in society, and I hope we can reverse that in the coming months.
Yeah, that's certainly a big issue in the Twin County region, no doubt about it. But as many of our colleagues have learned, it's not just Carroll County, Grayson County, the city of Galax. There's people from all over Southwest Virginia who reside in the Southwest Virginia Training Center, from Lee County up through the New River Valley. So it's a big deal from an employment standpoint. You certainly don't want to lose those jobs, but as we have found all too often, the department here in Richmond tends to treat those people like a statistic and like a number, and they are real, living, breathing human beings who are very anxious and upset over this potential closure, as are their families, and rightfully so. And so that's been something that I've worked on every session that I've been here. The Delegate Campbell and I have partnered on multiple times over the last 4 or 5 sessions. And so we finally made some headway. I think it's starting to sink in that the closure date of 2018 is coming on pretty quickly. So we've definitely seen a renewed amount of interest. We were able to get the Appropriations Subcommittee out to not only visit but also have a public hearing this past summer. So now when we come and talk about this issue, they know what we're talking about. They've been there, they've seen it, they understand that Southwest is not like Central Virginia or some of the other training centers, Northern Virginia, some of the ones that are actually closed. It's a great facility, and certainly something that we need to continue to have there for those residents who are very vulnerable and could very easily be exploited.
Your work that you all both did on that, along with your other colleagues, led to a floor amendment of the budget, which is not something that happens all that often. If anyone checks on the internet and looks at budget amendments over the years, there's just a handful at the most that get amended on the floor, and some of those are because there was an oversight.
Sure.
Sure. So it was really good to see that your colleagues in the House saw the need.
Well, and of course, you recall last summer, David, one of the agreements, we proposed that floor amendment last year, and we withdrew it, and one of the agreements was that we would have certain members of the Appropriations Committee come down and take a second look at the facility. Some of them had not even been there before. And I think they got a bird's eye view of the quality of the facility and the quality of the care out there. And I think it's made them second guess whether this plan is the most efficacious that we can undertake right now, especially if we're going to have some capacity, obviously. It's a grand idea that everyone can live out in a group home or an individual home somewhere, but it's just not realistic. There are some people who are so medically fragile that they're going to have tremendous supports, and those can probably only be provided in an institutional type setting. So ultimately, we've got 75 beds in Southeastern in the current plan that are set to remain open. That's just not simply going to be enough capacity to be able to serve those people, and we're hopeful that we can change the plan to create something very similar out in Southwest.
And I think it's compounded by the fact that you'd be asking people in far Southwest Virginia to drive, 6 to 8 hours to see their loved one in Chesapeake, and that's a really tough ask. Just really not a fair situation at all.
I agree.
Okay, what other issues would you want to mention in our closing minutes? Big issues for the two of you this session?
Well, I think certainly a big issue that that I don't know that anyone really saw coming down the pipe was the Speaker of the House retiring. I mean,
yes.
that's a big deal, and he'd been here 15 years, and not something that happens just every day in Virginia. In states like Florida, where they have such short-term limits, they turn a speaker over every 2 years, and in Virginia, you may have 2 or 3 House speakers in a lifetime. So that was certainly a big surprise, and very sorry to see Speaker Howell go. He always ran the House very fairly and equitably, and whether you agreed or disagreed on the policy, everyone got to have their say, and depending on the state legislature that you serve in, that's not always the case.
I recall jumping on that conversation with you. I recall 2002 when he was chosen to be Speaker. It was in the midst of a crisis, and the Republican caucus and the entire General Assembly wanted someone that was, might say above reproach, someone who was fair, and he was the one that rose to the top very, very quickly on that, and certainly has had a great time serving.
There's no question. I mean, not only the stabilization of that crisis, but the long-term stabilization is awfully important for the state. And he's done a tremendous job. I anticipate we've got some good leadership directly underneath him as well, and I anticipate you're not going to see a whole lot of slack off there in that regard. So we're optimistic certainly about where we're headed in the future.
Right. Issues that, as you look even to the reconvene or even on beyond that, issues that you think that you'll be working on?
Well, I think there's no doubt that the governor has already begun vetoing several bills. I don't know that
I actually got one of the first calls. He, of course, vetoed my bill, which would have allowed military service members between the ages of 18 and 21 to obtain a concealed weapons permit. And certainly don't understand his reasoning in that. If we can trust those individuals with the security of our country, I would hope that we can certainly trust them with entrusting them with the ability to defend themselves.
Right.
They're a target, let's face it. I mean, in today's world, terrorism happening around every corner, I mean, service members who are off duty even are targets. And it's ludicrous to me that the governor would have vetoed that legislation. Hopefully we can correct that in the reconvene session.
I think if you look a little bit forward, you're going to continue to see, I think, more changes in education as well. I think that we took some good steps in trying to roll back some of the SOL requirements, figure out which ones are really necessary and which ones are just kind of there, taking up space. And we made a very good step a couple of sessions ago. We took about a quarter of those off for grades 4 through 8, and I think that that's something that needs to be looked at again. I think we all finally understand and can agree that we are turning out a generation of excellent test takers, but not necessarily problem solvers.
Right.
So I do believe that that's going to be an issue that we're really going to have to dig into even more in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I think the 10-10-10 plan was critical as well, though, to provide funding to the small school divisions. Those especially out in our area and part of the state, we have a lot of divisions that are losing student population. It's really compromising funding and their ability to operate, and really happy to have seen that plan enacted.
Well, I want to thank both of you for being on this week in Richmond. Look forward to having more conversations with you. This may be one of the last shows in this building, but we will look forward to wherever we are and having you on. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community. For jobs, the economy, and public health, Virginia Hospitals, our lifeline.
The Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.